Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Jim from Jim's Coleus. Hope everybody had a great week. Weekend's upon us. Lots to do. Just want to shoot out real quick. We'll get this video going here. A lot of questions on can I bring my Coleus indoors for the winter? Overwintering. I know I've done a couple of videos on it. But for those of you who are interested, yes, you can. You can absolutely bring a potted Coleus indoors, no matter how big or small. I mean, I have these little ones here. They're doing well. And I have these pretty big. These are big Coleus. And you can bring them indoors. Just so you know, and take this into account, each Coleus is different. I mean, there's some Coleus plants that are stronger than others. And each one will react differently when you do bring them in initially. One thing I found on both of these, particularly on the black stockings here, is your plant will absolutely start to lose leaves. They're going to fall like crazy. It's just a reaction. It's a shock, sort of a shock from being brought indoors, from being out into the in the outdoors with the light all around and so forth, to indoors. Although even with a large bay window like I have here that gets a lot of sunlight, lots of light, it's still not like being outdoors. And the weather conditions, the oxygen levels, all that, it's all different. So your Coleus is going to be, it's going to go through some level of shock. It's a molting process, a wintering, dormancy, whatever you want to call it. This black stockings lost about, I would say, close to 50% of its leaves. This was, or maybe even more, maybe 70%. It was, if you look at some older videos, earlier videos I did over the summer, this was a really thick, full Coleus. And the first week I brought this in, it lost so many leaves every single day, morning or whatever. I come home from work or I get up in the morning. There were about a half a dozen to a dozen leaves on the floor. So it definitely lost foliage. It's natural, but this Saturn is doing actually much better than I expected. And then again, that's what leads me to tell you that each Coleus reacts differently depending on its species and so forth, and the strength, how strong the plant is and so forth. Not saying that this one isn't, but this one, that's a lot of big. These are big leaves. Look, I'm actually getting a seed stalk, which is tremendous because I don't have too many seeds. Let's try to get that zoomed in. I don't have too many seeds. I just noticed that. That's great. I'm happy to see that. So I'm going to let that grow. Anyway, this has very broad, complex leaves. Again, it lost a lot of leaves. Now, again, back to the Saturn. This did lose some leaves also. A lot, but not as much as the black stockings. The Saturn has done really well indoors. It's actually still growing, although it's a lot slower. So, as I mentioned in my previous videos, don't fertilize over the winter. You're not looking to unless your plant really looks like hell. If you have those Job's plant sticks, you can throw them in. But I generally don't fertilize over the winter because it's really a dormancy period. Just make sure you water it well. But this is getting some new growth, and I turn it around. Obviously, the majority of the light is coming from there, so I just moved it around. You can see how it's all pointing. It was facing the window for a better part of the week, so I just turned it around. Same with this one here. So these both stabilized. So after that first week or so, I was a little nervous, especially this one here, because it really lost a lot, as I mentioned. I was a little nervous, but it's stopped. It does not lose any. I mean, I just got up not long ago, and there's no leaves below. So it's really pretty much stabilized. So at this point, it's just a matter of keeping it watered and maintaining it, and I'm pretty confident it'll make it through the winter, as long as the light remains. So once again, here we're in New Jersey, the sun sets around 4:45 p.m. So what I do is I have my greenhouse over here, which is really for my germinations later. I have my LED plant light. I move them over to the plant light, and I give them a few more hours of light, and that's probably why they're doing really well, because I'm trying to minimize the shock of going from summer light, which is basically 16, 17 hours of daylight, to a good percentage, a big loss of light from the winter. So another thing, make sure you keep it watered. Don't dry it out completely. Sitting in sun in front of this window, which gets some sun, and I have baseboard below, will dry them out. So I make sure I keep track of the watering, and I have the little watering can nearby, but every few days I'll check it. And I do give it, I'll bring it over by the sink with the sprayer, and I'll gently spray all of the soil. And I give it enough water that it runs through the bottom. I don't drench the soil, but I make sure that all of the roots, because at this point, this is a pretty mature plant. And if you have a big plant like this in a pot that's been there for months, you have major root structure through this whole pot. All of the soil down here has roots. So you want to make sure that you don't just give it a little root water up top here thinking, oh, I'm afraid to overwater it. Because then these roots down here are not going to get any water, and then you end up losing your plant. So make sure every once in a while, I say once in a while, every week or so, be careful not to overwater it, but make sure you give it at least enough water that it starts to drain to the bottom. That way all of the roots on the bottom are getting enough water. So, all right, so you can overwinter your coleus. There's no reason why not. Hey, if you start getting some new growth like here, I'm going to maybe cut a couple of these and root them. But I was lucky enough to get seeds. All right, so again, don't, make sure they get plenty of light and water. Rotate them around. Move them from one side to another. Rotate them around. And if you had fertilizer mixed in your soil already during the summer and so forth, that's why it's not really necessary for you to fertilize. But during the winter, it's really, again, dormancy, so there's no need to promote growth. These are growing already, but there's no reason to fertilize. Okay, so any questions or comments, please leave them below. I really appreciate all of the comments. If you're concerned with anything with your overwintering, please leave me a comment or question. I'll be happy to get back to you. A lot of people, I really appreciate all the subscribers out there. Pass my channel along. There's so many people I'd like to shout out to. That thank you, that give me regularly give me questions, field questions my way, and I really appreciate them. So, okay, happy Thanksgiving in advance to everybody, and I'm looking forward to sowing my 2020 crop, which is right around the corner, Christmas. So, okay, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great weekend, and enjoy your coleus.